Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Okay, welcome back, everybody, and I am joined by someone special here. I am joined by Michelle Dickey. Michelle, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Doing well, Casey. Thank you. Great to be back.
Well, I'm psyched to have you. If people don't know, Michelle, you're a consultant, you're a coach, you're a trauma specialist, you're a best-selling author, and you're the founder at Consulting for Heightened Awareness. Can you tell us a little bit what that is in case people don't know? So let me just give you the floor here. If you can just bring us into your world.
Okay, absolutely. Yes. Briefly, Consulting for Heightened Awareness is mainly about helping other survivors of narcissistic abuse, helping them overcome the trauma associated with the abuse. So that's our main specialty. But I also offer a ton of different things. We have life skill sessions every Friday. And the topics range from, like we spoke about before, range from time management to basic tech skills. And then even what we're going to talk about today
Great topic.
is on basic writing skills. On if they, let's say they want to write a book, a fiction book, and they need help. They don't want to go through all the how-tos, and they don't want to do, some people don't care to do research, right? But they would like a one-on-one, with someone who can help them design that outline on how to pick the character, get the plot, and things like that. So we're sharing the journey on how I actually did that while I was an undergrad. And no, I did not do anything with that book. We don't know if that's even going to come out yet or not, but but that's how that works. But so I could even do that, and I can also host on I'm right now awaiting more feedback from the audience on what life skills they need help with. So, because after all, I don't know unless they let me know, because I want to make sure I'm giving them the value and the, to teach them just the basic stuff, that they were like, because during an abusive relationship, let's face it, a lot of abusers, they will prevent their victim from ever learning some of these things because they don't want their victim to get out there in the world and become independent. They want to keep their victim dependent on them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of life skills that go by the wayside, that, hey, let's get this stuff going so that they can, be productive in society and live their dream, fulfill their passion, help others with inspiring others, whatever it is they want to do. And they've got a love of writing and things like that. But, but Consulting for Heightened Awareness is that. And it's also a ministry, we do it through God's wisdom. So I want to just go ahead and share quickly one of my favorite passages. You'll find this on the homepage for a reason.
Love
because it ties right into that love of writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a love of writing. Well, what does Jesus tell us? He said, where your treasure is, there will be your heart also. There you go. And so if you've got the love of writing, that's where your treasure is. And so I'm like, hey, it fits. And so I know there's a lot of people, you do have some people who don't like to write, and they can find ghostwriters. That's one thing that's out there. So you could still get your idea and your story out there. There's many ways to do it. But before we get into some tips on that, as far as my journey and authorship, I want to help encourage and inspire others who are sitting there. They have a love of writing. That's what's on their heart. They have a passion for it. That's what God put in them to do. And what happens a lot of time is that they'll get on there, and let's say they go to Amazon, right? And they see all these books, and they're like, oh my gosh, there's already so many authors, and they'll get into this mindset. We don't want anyone to do that. To get into that mindset, that thinking that there's no room for, they'll go,
right, I can't, I'm not good enough. The self-talk, that horrible self-talk.
Oh yeah, negative self-talk.
Yeah,
and so, but they do, they get tricked into thinking that, and it stems from that comparing themselves to others. And so we're like, don't do that. Whatever it is that God put in you, the talent to write, that's unique for you. Right. And God will guide your steps on how to do that as well. Because, not everybody has the same writing style. That's what's the beautiful thing about it, is that got a variety. There's plenty of room in the world of authorship for new authors. In fact, there's a very high, here's a hint for everybody out there. There's a very high demand, not just for authors, but in the story, but for short stories, that is a hot topic right now going around. That there is this need for short stories, blogs, whatever. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of different ways. So I'll go ahead and share with you. I started my love of
I
writing
wanted
when
I
I was
wanted to ask if you don't mind, can I ask you
sure.
before we get into it, how did you get this bug? Were you just awesome in English and creative writing from the start,
Oh,
whereas are writers made or are they taught?
well, you have a combination. Okay, you have a combination of you've got the passion, right? You've got the love of writing, but you do have to learn grammar and English or whatever native language is for the author. Okay, you do have to learn that. Absolutely. I mean, we weren't born knowing that.
Right,
So we
right.
go through school. We go through school. We learn. And I will go ahead and share with you. When I was in elementary school, no, I was not. I had to take some extra classes and I had a lot of one-on-ones with instructors. But I will have to tell y'all what helped me the most was the higher education. It really truly did. That's a big benefit for me. A takeaway is it helped me hone some of those writing skills and things like that. Yeah. It
Yeah.
helped me
Wait,
craft it better at it and all of that.
did you
So
start with poetry?
it's funny because I actually started with songwriting, but yes, I
Oh.
dabble. Yeah, I dabbled a little bit in poetry.
Mhm.
Okay. And so, songwriting and poetry are very, yeah,
Kind of
they're like,
similar, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly, very similar. So that's kind of how it got started. And I have over 100 songs in the copyright office. Now that didn't come till later when I was able to get the equipment and the music and all that and put it together.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's for another day, y'all. that's
So,
just that's just another little talent that God put in me.
all
But
right.
you
So
know,
from there, did you go to short stories?
but there, you could kind of consider the Quora space. Okay, that's why I wanted to offer everybody who don't know what that is. Quora is a Q&A site. All right, and that is kind of the foundation for all of the work that we do. That's where it all, and I kind of knew it once I got on that platform and started kind of feeling it out and answering other people's questions about the abuse and stuff. And I said, I could see where this is going. Okay, this is my foundation. All right, so that's how that's it, and I'm still there, obviously, because I've got two different spaces: the ministry space, and then of course the CD space, which is battling cognitive dissonance, that confusion, okay, that comes with that the aftermath of the abuse that God is lifting that up, that fog, that brain fog. So I provide, and then we also have fun puns over there, as well. Whenever I come across something that's a little comical, with cognitive dissonance, like how how people use it to their advantage, and then also how I call it how the enemy uses it against us to get us duped into that abusive relationship. So kind of a combination of both going over there, but that's kind of so yeah, you could kind of say it's not really short stories, but it's factual.
Okay.
It's based on research and based on fact. Because like the very first post I have is I give the textbook definition, the psychological definition, and then I break it down from there and how it correlates or relates to the behavior of the abuser and things like that. It's all part of it. It's another place for survivors to go for healing and spiritual growth. That's what everything we do is all about. Our YouTube channel, our Patreon channel. By the way, for anyone who's looking for those, the channel titles are narcissism and cognitive dissonance. So what we did, we took the two spaces from Quora and we merged them, and because those are the two fundamental components in what we call the spiritual battle for the mind. That's what the abusers want. They want control of the mind.
Yeah, they want to
So
control your mind. They don't want you to be friends with anybody. They want you to themselves.
exactly, exactly. They want you to be their doormat, pretty
Yeah,
much.
right.
And so when God wakes us up to the abuse, because at first a lot of victims don't even know. Well, we did. A lot of us didn't know that's what it was
Right.
until we started googling their behaviors.
Right.
That's
Right.
usually the first step. That's usually the first step for a lot of people. Now, for a lot of us other ones who happen to just have textbooks that were kind of teaching us about it, like in an indirect way,
Yeah.
we started picking up on it. Because it was during my master's program, I started picking up on that last one, the straw that broke the camel's back. I started
Right.
picking up. I was like, wait a minute, what is
What's
he's
going on
acting
here?
weird all of a
Yeah.
sudden. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I had my textbook undergrad also, and I just wait a minute, I remember reading something, so I went back to that first. Then it came to Googling. So
Okay.
yeah,
All
that
right.
worked.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you could kind of say you get a little bit more practice. So there's that tip on that. If you're over there a core, let's say you have an idea, right? It starts with an idea always
Yeah.
when you're
Yeah.
writing. Start with that idea, and then whatever's on the heart. Whatever is in the heart that you want to get out there and share with the world. And so you could come up with a theme. Let's say you have the idea, turn it into a theme. You can create a space over there on Quora and just make it the, or let's say you have a theory. There's tons of interesting theories
Like a
out
theory?
there.
Like what can I have
Like,
an example maybe?
okay, yeah, well, for example, the theory of cognitive dissonance. Okay, that's from the textbook definition, but what we realize later on is that that's just a fancy term for confusion, and so it's not really a theory. It's actually very true. There's a
Okay,
lot of
okay,
truth to that.
okay.
um, so that's just one example, and then you have if you dive into let's say you're into criminology real heavy, all the theory of an anomy. Gosh Almighty, right off the top of my head, but there's a ton of different theories there. Then there's new ones always emerging too.
Could you do something like the flat Earth or something like that? Could that be?
Yeah, yeah, whatever, like an idea or a topic that you're really interested in. After all, if you want to write well, first you have to write what you know, and second you have to write. You got to be interested in it, right?
Right. Okay.
So there you go.
So you got that passion is
And
you gotta really want to know. Uh, should when you writing something, should you have a point to prove, or should you just ask questions? What do you think?
it can be a combination of
Could be
both.
both.
I wouldn't necessarily say a point to prove. Depends on what the topic is. When you really stop and think about it, depends on, are you putting together for example, a scientific research article? Then you are going to have some points to prove because you're going to need data. You're going to need, be quantitative and qualitative. For those who don't know what that is, go look that up. That's, there's all kinds of stuff out there for it. But, so it depends. You're going to have a little bit of something that you gotta prove. Like, where did that come from? Okay,
Yeah.
where did you pull that from? Where's that, that fact, But
Mhm.
if you're just talking in general about, like we just said, theories or whatever, it's like, hey, what if? Because a lot of poetry starts out with that. So what if, and what if this were this way or that was that way, and then you kind of build a theme, kind of, a little bit of imagination and creativity in there,
Mhm.
and so you could come up with a poem that way. That's how a lot of poets come up with your philosophical thinking.
Yeah.
you know
It could be abstract too, right?
yeah, absolutely. It could be whatever is your interest, your passion, you're really like or curious about. Then you could base the theme based on a question, and then gather comments and things. Say, okay, so what if, and then explain. It's like, okay, what if, or what, how, why, whatever, and then say, here's the reason why, and kind of start building on that theme, and then have others chime in and get the conversation going back and forth and get different perspectives and stuff like that. Because that can help shape your self thinking going forward. Like, hey, you know what? That's a really interesting point. To go look it up and learn a little bit more about that. So kind of piece things together. If writing comes naturally to many of us who it does, that it's just about figuring out what it is you want to write about, picking out that topic, and then practicing. After you got to learn some stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
So after you learn and you do all of that, and then you're like, okay, now I've got this really great idea. Because let's face it, there's a lot of people got great ideas out there. It kind of reminds me of that question we've all been told, that there's no dumb question. The only dumb question is the question that you never asked. It's very true. Same thing with the ideas. There's no dumb idea if it's what matters to you. And there's, and another thing is, there's an audience for it.
Uh,
That's something else to keep in mind too, is that you could do a little research on that.
who's your
And
demographic type thing, right?
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be age group, the topic,
Hmm.
what else is out there about that topic. And then when you figure that out, you go, okay, then so what can I bring that's unique to that topic to offer something fresh and something new. So, like with me, I offer the spiritual truth. I'm separate from the worldview stuff, the world terminology and all of that. Spiritual truth. So that separates me. That's just to give you all an example.
Mhm.
But you just kind of examine within what makes your idea unique in that niche.
Right, right.
And, that same concept applies to anything you have a passion for, really. I
Yeah,
mean, because no two people are exactly the same.
right.
We're not supposed to be, okay. But yeah, we find out that these abusers are really good at copying people,
Yeah.
copy mirroring, and that's how they get us trauma bonded. But anyway, so that's that. And so when it starts out, it's kind of a process,
Mhm.
to overcome that stage fright. Okay, that's really what a lot of aspiring authors, and there's a lot of them out there too. I find them on Quora, and they are just brilliant writers, and I see them improving. See, that's what it's all about. The more that they write over there, the better they get. And the more concise, the more clear they become, and they offer some awesome, wonderful tips. Especially there's one who's still, she's a young adult now, but she started writing in her teen year, and so she got her demographic, her audience that she writes to and inspires and encourages. So we're watching her because she's gonna go somewhere.
Oh, well, I wanted to ask you something as look, as a best-selling author, as someone who knows the ins and outs of putting this together, are there special exercises that you do? Have you ever experienced, as they say, writer's block? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Mm.
Because I heard one person said that one exercise is to write a bunch of stuff down, even if it's gibberish. Can you tell me if you've ever heard of something like that before?
Yes, because I've experienced writer's block. It
You
is a
did.
very it happens. It sure does. And how long it lasts really depends. Okay, it depends on a lot of things. What's going on in your life at that particular time? What other priorities have now come about? For example, you decide to go to to college, okay, and then now you've got a ton of coursework that you really got to get done because you got deadlines, right? You got due dates, you got to turn that homework in, and there's no, I mean, yeah, sure, your instructors work with you if an emergency, happens or whatever, but you do. You're like, okay, wait a second. So I experienced a little bit of a writer's block. However, this is what I would share with everybody. This other little tip, because while I was in undergrad, this is why I'm so big on how God brings certain people across our path at little certain time seasons of our life just to show us something or just to introduce us to something. Because at that time in undergrad, I had not been writing for quite some time now. I went through the separation, the divorce, trying to get back on my feet and things like that. So that just kind of a little period, dry spell there, if you will.
Hmm.
And so yeah, when in undergrad there was a fellow criminal justice student who was also faith based. She's a Christian, heavy faith based. So we hit it off. We got along. She was bubbly. I was bubbly. Hey, she was great. She still is.
Okay.
But she heard me talk about the fact that I had this idea for a fiction novel, and she was like, "Hey, did you know?" And she sent me an email. She said, "Did you know about NaNoWriMo?" And I said, "Huh?" I said, "What is that?" She said, "They've got a writing contest going on right now." And I said, "Really? I gotta check that out." And so they're still around, by the way, for anyone that is NaNo and then capital W, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And then RIMO, NaNoWriMo. And periodically they'll hold these writing contests. Okay. And this particular one during that time was for fiction novels. And I had an idea because it was a criminal justice program, right? And I was big at that time. I was big into those detective shows and
Like
stuff.
Law and Order or something.
Yeah, NCIS, all that. At that
Okay.
time, I was really
Okay.
into that. And so what I did is I had this idea where I wanted to, what about a detective, a lieutenant who has this gift of foresight? And so the idea just like thought, oh man, this is really cool. So
Get the
yes,
juices going.
yeah. So yeah, here comes the writing it down, even if it's just gibberish part.
Oh, so you
Okay.
just write and everything comes to your head. You just
I
write it
was
all
just
down.
writing, just kind of writing those ideas, bullet pointing it, whatever, however you want to put it. And it did at first like gibberish. However, I had to pick my characters. I had to pick the plot twist. Okay, who did I want to make the bad guy, and all of this, right? So about a serial killer in a small town, but the lieutenant was able to foresee things. Oh, it was really cool. But anyway,
Interesting. Yeah,
so that got me back into writing,
because that
and
got the passion back
yeah,
and,
it's
and
kind
broke that slump or that block. So you're saying a good idea can do that, or someone just making that call like your friend, just getting you back into it. It doesn't. God just has a way of just bringing you back to where you should be.
exactly, it sure does. And because I mean, I've been writing prior to that, right? Poetry, songs, and things like that. And in 2007, I actually did enter into a poetry contest. Okay, and so I got a excellence award for that. I had forgotten all about it until my current book promotion team said, "Hey, have you had any other stuff published before?" And I went, "Wait a second, come on, let me get my portfolio out. Hold on," because then it just like ding, 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 ding.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm saying. Like probably I want to say from like 2009, because that's when I got separated. From 2009 to about 2013. That's how long that spell was.
Wow.
So yeah,
That
and
was
it's not that
probably a challenging time.
I
Challenging, right?
absolutely. And so I had to go through all those ups and downs, and then of course ended up. Never mind, long story.
Yeah, that's
But
another show. Another show.
yeah, no shit. But we got back into the writing, right? And what the contest was, this is the encouragement for everybody.
Okay.
All right, that had that love of writing, and they're just let's say you do go this route and you enter the contest, because at that time it was for 50,000 words. Okay, the novel had to be 50,000 words. And then you also were entered for a chance for publication with them. All right. Now, here's the thing, because I do not want anyone getting discouraged if you go and take this challenge, because it's a really good way to get that fire lit up under you, to get
Okay.
your juices go and to give you that additional practice.
Right, right.
Okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just got to make sure it makes sense, and do the best you can, and you get it done, because they'll give you a time frame, by when it's got to be turned in. I don't recommend anyone do it if they've got homework though. That was a bit stressful.
Priorities, right? Priorities.
Yeah. So the best advice, I guess, or suggestion would be on that is if you look into it, you'll try to plan a year ahead. That way you say, okay, well, I can't do it this year because I have like 3-4 classes and I need to get through this or whatever it is. To plan for a year. So that way, like on a weekend day, take one day. Many of us in college have always said you got to take at least one day off from schoolwork, right?
Yep.
At least
Yeah.
one day, it's all part of that. And so that could be the day that you pick up and start writing out your NaNoWriMo contest idea, right? There you go. And so you work on it over a year's time, so that when that contest comes back around the following year, you've got it ready, right? And you're not going to be bogged down with having to hurry up and get 50,000 words and all of that. Now, once you do that, you get 50,000 words, and they will give you a certificate, kind of like an award for actually reaching that 50,000 word milestone. Now, it can be more than 50,000. 50,000 is at least 50,000.
Okay.
Okay. And so what we did is, I got that. I didn't win the publishing part. So even if you don't win the publishing part with them, guess what?
You put out that many words for Pete's sakes. You did something awesome.
That is a milestone, and you've got back into writing. You've got your creative juices flowing. You've got the experience. You got a lot of things going. And you're like, yeah, man, you had fun, right?
Yeah.
So you can actually turn around, do some self-editing, of course. Okay, you can do a little self-editing. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money paying others unless you prefer. That's totally choice. But you could self-edit a little bit, clean it up, and fix some grammar, because when if you do it really, really quick, if you end up going that route, you'll go back later and you'll go, oh man, I need an S there. I needed a period there. That kind of simple stuff.
Hey, Michelle, I'm gonna have to let this be a teaser for our next one, because we're way out of time. But I want you to tell people how to get a hold of you and how to work with you. That's the most important. Let me give you that because we're out of time here. So let me give you the floor. Great show, by the way. Great stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Yes, everybody can reach me at 704-245-4340, or you can send me an email at michelle.dickey@cdhrwdrmd.org. And as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Sending love and light to all warriors out there. Until next time, let's show some gratitude to the Heavenly Father, and you keep being you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Hey, that is Michelle Dickey, great guest, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say next. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Casey.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.